Hi everyone, Jim Spears here. In this video I want to talk to you about somatic therapies and why they're important to understand and what type of tools we can work with when working with people's emotions or with mental and psychological conditions. So as an acupuncturist, it's very common that when we're putting needles in that it can release intensive emotions that are held in the body. And this is something that not only acupuncturists have to work with, but also massage therapists and other types of manual therapists. I've talked with some of my osteopathic colleagues about this and the way in which when they do adjustments of various sorts that can release emotion. And in psychotherapy, we generally think of that as talking therapies, and there's various ways to go about that. However, with somatic therapies, we're using physical techniques that are addressing the way that emotion gets held in the body. So one thing that's very important to understand is that the emotions basically have two components. There's the sensations and the feelings in the body, and then the other part of the emotion is the internal dialogue, the words that are associated with the emotion, and that inner storyline. So we've got the mental aspect of the emotions in our thoughts, and then we have the sensations and the feelings in our body. And this is an important thing to distinguish between, because with the somatic therapies, we want to address the way that the emotion is held in the body, and we can also use talking therapies as part of that, but there are a variety of techniques that we can use to work the emotion out of the body. And it's very common that people will go through a lot of psychotherapy and a lot of talking about their conditions, but that emotion still remains trapped in the body. So until that gets released, people can stay within certain emotional cycles. So as an acupuncturist, it's very common that I see a lot of people that are complaining of things like depression or anxiety or PTSD. Trauma is quite common as well. And so whatever form of therapy you're doing, and if you're having the experience of your patient releasing emotions, then it's really important to understand some of these things. And it's really important to address that physical level of emotion as it is held within the body. So there's basically four major ways that we can work with people in a very physical way to help them release emotional tension that they're holding. And we can do this through breathing techniques, and there's a variety of different breathing techniques for that. We can do this through what I refer to as sensory-orientated questions. So asking them about the way that the emotion is held in the body in a very sensory-orientated way. And then we can also use touch as a way to help release the emotion, and movement as well. So these four methods, breath, sensory-orientated questions, touch, and movement, form the basis for helping to move emotion that's been chronically held in the body. Now, another important thing to understand is that there's really 5 key areas where people hold emotion in their body. And the first area is in the head or in the face and in the jaw. So that's the first area. The second area where people commonly hold emotion is in the neck, shoulders, or back. And this is a very common thing. People hunch their shoulders and they put their emotional stress and tension there. The third most common area where people hold emotion, or a third major area, is within their chest. And if you work with people with anxiety and you ask them to feel the anxiety within their body, you'll find that a lot of people hold anxiety here in the chest. And another key area where people hold emotion is in the abdominal area and the digestive system, and then the last of the 5 are hips and pelvis. So once we understand where people hold emotions, and once we bring that to the attention of our clients and the way that emotion is held in the body, then we can start to use the 4 methods methods of breath, sensory-oriented questions, touch, and movement. Now, different people respond differently to these different methods, so it's good to be able to have an assortment of tools that you're working with when you're addressing these types of conditions. Some people may respond really well to intensive breathing techniques, whereas other people may not want to use those breathing techniques for certain reasons. Other people need more calming and soothing breathing techniques, and so if they're on the stress response and they're in fight or flight, and they've got a type A personality, like teaching them some calming breathing techniques is a very basic technique, but something that's really important nonetheless. So other ways that you can address it that we've talked about are working with sensory-oriented questions. And this is one of the methods that I use the most, because when you're doing this type of work with people, the first step that you want to do is have them locate where they're holding the emotional tension or the trauma or the stress within their bodies. So once they locate it, then you can start to ask a series of questions that help them to experience that emotion in a new way, and in doing this, it helps to facilitate emotional healing and catharsis. Now, we can also work with touch, and some people respond really well with that, and if you are a massage therapist or you're using your hands and you're touching your clients frequently, you've probably had the experience of how effective gentle touch can be for releasing old emotions. And then finally, we can use movement. So for patterns where a person is like really locked up or they have a lot of emotional armoring in their body, using movement can be a very effective way to help them release the emotion through the movements. So those are the type of methods that I'll be teaching in my course, and there's a lot of detail with all of these. Like even within the sensory related questions, there's literally dozens of techniques that we can use, and I break those down in great detail in my classes and in the way that I teach this. So I hope that you've got something from this. What I want to leave you with as a technique that you can practice when you're working with your clients, if they have anxiety or depression or trauma, is simply start asking them where they hold that emotion or that stress, or where they hold the emotion in their body, and see what they say. And just by doing that, you're going to be taking the first step in helping people to have better mind-body integration and harmony, and you're going to give them perspective changes on their emotion. So when they locate it in their body, one thing that it does is it helps them to get out of their head and into the feeling component of it. And that's what we want, is we want them feeling into this, experiencing it in a new way, so that they can finally let go of it and move on and develop a new relationship with themselves once they're able to release that. So once they locate it in their body, then we can use any of those 4 different techniques. We can use the sensory-oriented questions, the breathing, movement, or touch. So I'm going to leave you with that for now. If you want some more information, just fill out the form, and I'll send you a PDF file and some more information about how you can start to address mental, emotional, and psychological conditions by using somatic